High above the Amazonian canopy, where the branches thin and sunlight splinters through shifting layers of mist and green, bursts of color tear across the sky like living fireworks. Red, blue, yellow, and emerald blur together in powerful wing beats as a pair of scarlet macaws wheel into view, their long, trailing tail feathers slicing through the humid air with aerodynamic elegance. In this moment, they are impossible to miss, and equally impossible to ignore. These birds are not the jungle's most elusive, rather, they are its most exuberant, a declaration of presence in a place built for concealment. Yet it is precisely this audacity that has allowed them to thrive where stealth might fail. The scarlet macaw, Aramacao, is not alone in this aerial carnival. Its relatives, the blue and yellow macaw, the red and green macaw, the hyacinth macaw, share its penchant for color and clamor. Together, they form a genus that defies the camouflage rulebook of tropical survival. While many creatures of the rainforest evolved to vanish into the foliage, macaws have done the opposite. Their colors mimic the jungle in bloom, petals, fruits, bursts of bromeliads and orchids, and in doing so, they blend by standing out. But survival for the macaw is not merely about appearance. It is written in their behavior, their relationships, and their intelligence. Macaws are creatures of habit and fidelity. Their bonds form early and often last for life. Observers will notice how mated pairs fly together in tight formation, often mirroring each other's motions with near-perfect symmetry. This coordination is not mere instinct, it is communication. A soft squawk, a tilt of the wing, a sudden pause mid-flight. These are signals exchanged between partners who may rely on one another for decades. These long-term pairings are not only emotionally intricate, but biologically significant. They reinforce social stability within flocks, enable cooperative feeding, and synchronize breeding cycles that must align with the rainforest's pulse of dry and wet seasons. The forest, though lush, is not generous to all equally. Food must be found, not given. Macaws are specialized feeders, their powerful beaks designed to crack open the hard shells of palm nuts that few other species can access. The jaw pressure of a macaw can exceed 300 pounds per square inch, enough to pulverize seeds that would otherwise go uneaten. Their diet includes a mix of fruits, nuts, flowers, and clay, the latter being a particularly fascinating and less understood behavior. Along riverbanks, dozens of macaws gather to nibble at exposed clay cliffs, their heads bowed as if in reverence. The clay, rich in sodium and other minerals, may neutralize toxins found in unripe fruit or serve as a rare dietary supplement. This behavior is not just curious, it is a visible communal strategy of self-medication, one that draws species together across social and territorial lines. Predators, of course, are an ever-present concern. Harpy eagles patrol the upper canopy, their massive wingspan and uncanny silence a constant threat. Macaws, though large, are not immune. Their first line of defense is vigilance. From high vantage points, sentries call out at the slightest movement below. Alarm calls cascade through the trees, alerting not just other macaws but other species, toucans, monkeys, even some ungulates. These alarm systems are less about altruism and more about ecosystem-wide consequence. When one species sees danger, all others benefit from the warning. And when macaws rise into the sky en masse, shrieking and circling in wide loops, predators lose the element of surprise. Breeding season brings a new layer of complexity. Hollow trees, usually in dead or decaying trunks, serve as nesting sites, but competition for these cavities is fierce. Larger birds, mammals, even bees may occupy or defend potential nesting spaces. A pair of macaws may return year after year to the same tree, sometimes defending it against intruders for months before egg-laying begins. Inside the nest, the female incubates while the male guards and forages. The chicks, once hatched, are altricial, born blind, featherless, and entirely dependent. It takes months before they are ready to fly, and even longer before they learn the complex social behaviors required to integrate into the flock. Learning in macaws is not instinct alone. Young birds observe, imitate, and experiment. They learn how to navigate the forest, how to select edible fruits, and how to interact within the group. Play behavior, often dismissed as trivial, is in fact critical. Juvenile macaws engage in aerial acrobatics, vocal experimentation, and object manipulation. These actions fine-tune their motor skills and sharpen their cognitive responses. Macaws are known for their intelligence, and not without reason. They can solve puzzles, recognize individuals, and even understand cause and effect. In captivity, their mimicry of human speech is well documented, but in the wild, their vocalizations are no less complex. Each flock maintains a kind of dialect, a unique signature of calls and responses that allows individuals to identify allies and strangers. Despite their strengths, macaws are under pressure. Habitat loss, illegal pet trade, and climate instability have reduced their numbers in many areas. The very traits that make them extraordinary, their visibility, their beauty, their intelligence, also make them vulnerable. Bright feathers attract poachers, long lives make them slow to reproduce, and their need for mature trees limits their ability to adapt quickly to changing landscapes. Conservation efforts have made some progress, particularly through habitat protection and breeding programs, but the challenges are ongoing. Protecting the macaws is not just about saving a species, it is about maintaining the ecological roles they fulfill: seed dispersers, forest sentinels, and indicators of environmental health. To witness macaws in their natural element is to glimpse the rainforest in full expression. Their flight, like a living current, flows from tree to sky and back again, connecting canopy to ground, past to future. They are not just birds, but a testament to what evolution can build when complexity, color, and cooperation are allowed to flourish. In the Amazon, where life thrives in dense, layered networks, macaws are more than decoration. They are declaration, a visible, vocal, and vital presence in a world that is always listening, always watching, always alive. High above the forest floor, where sunlight filters through dense layers of emerald canopy, the Amazon becomes a cathedral of noise. The air itself seems to vibrate with the pulse of life, chirps, croaks, rustles, and the distant rhythmic thrum of insects, until one sound pierces it all with startling clarity. A long, rising whistle bursts from the foliage like a trumpet blast, swelling rapidly and breaking into a high-pitched scream. It is jarring, shrill, and commanding. Then a moment of silence, until it comes again, just as loud and from seemingly nowhere. This is the call of the screaming piha, Lepaugus vociferans, a bird so acoustically dominant that its voice can drown out the sound of nearby waterfalls. Heard from over half a kilometer away, its call reaches over 100 decibels, roughly the volume of a jackhammer or chainsaw. Yet despite its vocal prominence, the bird itself is astonishingly inconspicuous. Perched motionless on a moss-draped branch, the piha is a smooth, compact bird draped in unremarkable ash-gray plumage. It seems designed to vanish into the tangle of bromeliads, vines, and epiphytes, offering no visual clue to its sonic presence. It is often heard long before it is ever seen, and even then, only the keenest observers catch it mid-call, throat vibrating, head tilted slightly skyward as its call rips through the undergrowth. The piha's volume is not a fluke of anatomy, but a deliberate product of evolutionary pressure. During the breeding season, males gather at loose leks, territorial arenas of song competition, where they sing relentlessly for hours each day. These performances are not random outbursts, but finely tuned displays meant to attract females and assert dominance over rivals. Their syrinx, the avian vocal organ, is highly specialized, enabling extreme control over sound modulation and projection. It's a sophisticated mechanism, allowing these otherwise quiet and solitary birds to dominate the auditory landscape of the rainforest. The Amazonian forest itself is an acoustically complex environment, dense with layers of plant matter that absorb and scatter sound. In such a setting, low-frequency sounds travel farther than high-pitched ones, but the piha's sharp, piercing call still cuts cleanly through the canopy noise. This sonic performance has not evolved in isolation. Rather, it is in constant negotiation with the calls of other species. Trogons mutter soft coos in the mid-canopy, bellbirds hammer metallic notes through the upper tiers, and antbirds emit short bursts near the forest floor. In this overlapping soundscape, every bird species must find its own frequency range and rhythm, an ecological form of broadcasting rights. The piha's lack of flamboyant coloration is another adaptation tied to its lifestyle. Unlike species that rely on vivid plumage to court mates, such as the brightly painted macaws or iridescent hummingbirds, the piha advertises its fitness through voice alone. This choice has consequences beyond mating strategy. Remaining visually discreet helps avoid detection by predators such as forest falcons and snakes, whose keen eyes scan the branches for careless movement or color contrast. The grey plumage of the piha blends perfectly with the lichen-coated limbs and cloud-filtered light of its mid-canopy perch, giving it a spectral invisibility amidst the jungle's chaos. In the stillness between calls, the piha becomes nearly indistinguishable from its surroundings. It does not forage with the flocks that sweep through the understory, nor does it descend to fruiting trees like tanagers or toucans. Instead, it remains in its loosely defined territory, issuing its territorial and mating calls from high vantage points. When not singing, it moves with deliberate economy, hopping short distances or fluttering briefly from one branch to the next. It feeds primarily on soft fruits, particularly those of fig and palm species, swallowing them whole and dispersing their seeds across the forest floor with minimal fanfare. Occasionally it supplements its diet with small insects, snapped mid-air with swift precision. Its predators are few but efficient. The forest falcon, in particular, is one of the few raptors agile enough to navigate dense vegetation in pursuit of such elusive prey. This compact predator uses short bursts of silent flight, gliding from shadow to shadow, taking advantage of any lapse in the piha's vigilance. Yet even for these hunters, the piha poses a challenge. Its camouflage and stillness serve as effective countermeasures, and many times the falcon will pass within meters of a piha without detecting it. The piha's breeding rituals are subtle and largely unobserved. Males do not build nests or contribute to chick rearing. Once mating has occurred, often after days of persistent calling and displaying, the female alone constructs a small, cup-shaped nest on a horizontal branch, often several meters above the ground. She lays 1 or 2 eggs and raises the chicks with no assistance. The young fledge within weeks, already cloaked in the same nondescript grey of the adults, their voices not yet capable of the signature call that will define their future. As rainforest habitats shrink under the pressure of deforestation, fragmentation, and climate change, the fate of the screaming piha serves as a subtle but potent indicator of ecosystem health. Unlike more flamboyant or specialized species, pihas are relatively adaptable and persist in secondary forests, but their long-term survival depends on the continued existence of large unbroken tracts of mature rainforest. Their calls may still ring out in disturbed forests, but changes in call frequency, duration, and timing have been noted in areas with heavy human presence, suggesting that even the most powerful voices must adapt when the forest itself begins to change. In recordings used by field biologists, the screaming piha often serves as an audio landmark. When layered into soundscapes captured by automated recorders, its call helps researchers determine the time of day, the season, and even the general health of the forest. In many ways, the piha has become more than just another bird species. It is a sonic symbol of the Amazon itself, its scream echoing as both a declaration of life and a call to attention. And yet, for all its volume, the piha remains hidden. It does not seek the attention of humans or the admiration of eco-tourists. It sings not for spectacle but for survival, to locate a mate, to assert a claim, to be heard through the crush of chlorophyll and competition. It does not care that it's louder than a chainsaw, or that its scream has become iconic in nature documentaries. The forest is not a stage and the piha is not performing. It is simply calling, loudly, endlessly, instinctively, into the living maze of the Amazon. Deep in the high canopy of the Amazon rainforest, where the tallest emergent trees reach toward the broken sunlight like the spires of a cathedral, a shadow moves with weightless certainty. The air here is thin and still, broken only by the distant chorus of cicadas and the soft rustle of bromeliads shifting in the breeze. But that stillness fractures the moment a harpy eagle enters the frame. It arrives without warning, without sound, an immense form slipping between limbs with the control of a falling leaf and the intent of a blade. The harpy eagle, Harpia harpyia, is a predator built for vertical warfare. Weighing up to 9 kilograms and boasting a wingspan that can reach over 2 meters, it is among the heaviest and most powerful raptors on the planet. Yet its proportions are deceptive. The wings, though broad, are short relative to its size, an evolutionary trade-off that allows this massive bird to maneuver through the dense architecture of the rainforest like a ghost. It does not soar. It stalks. From its perch, often on a gnarled branch 40 meters above the ground, the eagle surveys its territory with eyes as fierce as they are unblinking. Its pupils narrow beneath a feathered crown that rises and lowers with its level of alertness, giving the impression not just of awareness, but judgment. Vision is its greatest asset. With binocular eyesight more than 8 times sharper than a human's, it can pick out the subtle twitch of a monkey's tail or the careful ascent of a sloth hundreds of feet away. But it doesn't rush the hunt. A harpy eagle will wait for hours in total stillness before launching a strike. It has the patience of a sniper and the force of a battering ram. When the attack comes, it is swift, direct, and final. Talons the size of grizzly bear claws pierce through bone and muscle in an instant, delivering a death blow before the prey can comprehend the threat. Sloths are frequent targets, slow, defenseless, and abundant. So are monkeys, despite their agility and tight-knit group vigilance. The eagle's approach is nearly silent, and in the tangle of the canopy, a fraction of a second can be the difference between escape and oblivion. There is no extended chase. A harpy hunts with precision, not endurance. Its prey, once caught, is either devoured in place or carried back to a nest that can rival a motorcycle in size. These nests are constructed high in the emergent trees, the kapoks, the Brazil nuts, the skyscrapers of the rainforest. Built with thick branches and carefully lined with green leaves, the nest serves not only as a cradle for chicks, but as a central hub for the mated pair, who return to the same structure year after year. Harpy eagles are monogamous and territorial. Their breeding strategy is slow and deliberate. One chick every 2 to 3 years, raised over a period of months with intense parental investment. In the wild, this makes each offspring an ecological gamble. The chick is born covered in white down, its oversized feet and hooked beak hinting at its future potential. For the first several weeks, it remains flightless and vulnerable, fed exclusively by its parents, who alternate between hunting and guarding. The development is gradual. It may take nearly a year for the juvenile to take its first flight with confidence, and longer still before it can hunt independently. This extended dependency reflects the demands of learning to be a harpy eagle. The skills are not merely instinctual, they are practiced, refined, and passed down through silent example. Despite its fearsome appearance, the harpy eagle is not invulnerable. It faces no natural predators as an adult, but it is critically sensitive to human disturbance. Logging, agriculture, and road building fragment its habitat and sever the wide territories it needs to hunt and nest. It is not a bird that tolerates confinement. Its ranges stretch across dozens of square kilometers, and when forests are reduced to broken patches, the eagle's hunting grounds collapse. Even a single felled nesting tree, often centuries old, can erase a breeding pair's entire reproductive effort for years. Historically, the eagle has also suffered from human misunderstanding. Its intimidating appearance has led to persecution in some regions, where it is wrongly believed to threaten livestock or children. In others, it is hunted for trophies, or its feathers are used in ceremonial dress. But these threats pale compared to the silent loss of habitat. The eagle's strength is no match for chainsaws, and yet, where it persists, the harpy eagle reigns without contest. Its presence signifies the health of the ecosystem, a top predator thriving only where the forest remains intact, its prey abundant, and its nest undisturbed. Conservation efforts in countries like Brazil, Panama, and Ecuador have begun to turn the tide. Protected reserves, education programs, and telemetry studies have helped to map eagle territories and identify the corridors essential to their survival. Even so, the bird remains elusive, seen by few and studied by fewer. To witness a harpy eagle in its realm is to be reminded of the true meaning of apex. It does not posture or provoke. It simply exists, vast and assured, above the tangled world below. Its silence speaks of certainty. Its flight, which leaves no trace, speaks of mastery. It does not need to announce its power. The forest already knows. In the teeming, layered complexity of the Amazon, where life often hides in camouflage and strategy, the harpy eagle chooses visibility and control. It does not evade confrontation. It defines the rules of engagement. It is both guardian and executioner, shaping the rhythm of life beneath its perch, not by volume or flash, but by presence alone. In the mid-canopy light of the Amazon, where mottled sunlight weaves through leaves like shifting patterns on water, a flash of green breaks the stillness. It's sudden, loud, deliberate. Wings flicker through the forest, scattering droplets from last night's rain off broad leaves, and in their wake comes a burst of sound, rhythmic, clipped, strangely deliberate. It is not bird song in the traditional sense, not melodic or musical. Instead, it is mimicry, carried out with near-perfect clarity. The squeak of a tree branch, the staccato of a frog's call, even the metallic clank of a researcher's radio left behind in years past. These are not echoes, they are impressions, copied and replayed by one of the Amazon's most intelligent and socially complex residents, the parrot. Among the parrots that occupy the rainforest, macaws, amazons, parakeets, and conures, there exists a level of cognitive ability that challenges the conventional boundaries of animal intelligence. Unlike many birds that rely on instinctual calls or genetically hardwired songs, parrots are vocal learners. They hear, assess, practice, and reproduce sound with uncanny accuracy. But their mimicry is not simply an evolutionary party trick. It serves functions far deeper than novelty. In tightly knit flocks that navigate the dense canopy together, sound is everything. It marks identity, maintains bonds, signals danger, and in some cases, it even comforts. Parrots are rarely alone. They fly in loose groups, often dozens strong, each individual paired or clustered among familiar companions. These associations aren't casual. Bonds between mated pairs are deeply entrenched and long-lasting, sometimes enduring for decades. Partners preen one another daily, reinforcing their connection through soft chirps and synchronized movements. This preening is more than grooming. It's a constant reaffirmation of trust, played out in near ritualistic gestures. When one bird calls, the other responds not just in tone, but in timing and pitch. These call and response patterns are not rote behaviors. They are dynamic, often shifting slightly with mood, context, and time. In their social groups, parrots learn not only from their parents, but from peers. Young birds imitate adult calls, sometimes inaccurately at first, practicing until they match. Over time, distinct dialects can form between groups of the same species, unique vocal identities passed down through generations. These dialects can be so precise that researchers can determine an individual's flock origin based solely on vocal structure. In the intricate hierarchy of the rainforest, where countless species call out at once, such specificity is vital. It allows individuals to stand out without inviting danger and ensures that social bonds remain distinguishable amid the constant background noise of the jungle. Not all of this communication is vocal. Parrots are also acutely expressive in gesture and posture. A slight raise of feathers along the neck, a tilt of the head, or a deliberate sidestep along a branch can communicate irritation, curiosity, or anticipation. These gestures, when coupled with vocal mimicry, form a rich language of intent and emotion, an internal life more nuanced than often assumed of non-human animals. One of the most compelling revelations from studying parrots is their capacity for self-awareness. In controlled studies, several species have demonstrated mirror recognition, an ability previously believed to be limited to great apes, dolphins, and a handful of other animals. A parrot that recognizes its reflection is not mistaking it for another bird. It adjusts its behavior, examines parts of itself it cannot normally see, and may even use the reflection as a tool for navigation or grooming. This level of cognitive processing suggests a sense of self, a foundation for empathy and memory. It is perhaps this same awareness that allows some parrots to show signs of grief. When a bonded partner dies, parrots do not simply repair and move on. They often show clear behavioral changes, reduced activity, loss of appetite, withdrawal from flock interaction. These reactions can persist for days or weeks. In captive settings, they are even more pronounced. Birds may call repeatedly into the silence, returning to favorite perching spots as though expecting an answer. While caution must be taken not to anthropomorphize, such responses hint at emotional depth and resilience. Grief in this sense is not reserved for mammals alone. Their intelligence comes with vulnerability. Many parrot species are among the most heavily trafficked animals in the illegal wildlife trade. Their beauty, mimicry, and long lifespan make them desirable pets, but the trade devastates wild populations. Captured birds often suffer trauma, malnutrition, or death before ever reaching market. In some regions of the Amazon, entire flocks have vanished due to unsustainable trapping. Even where the trade is suppressed, habitat loss continues to erode their nesting grounds. Parrots rely on old-growth trees with suitable cavities to raise their young, structures that take decades to form and are often the first to be cut down during logging operations. Unlike fast-breeding species, parrots take time to mature. Many do not reach sexual maturity for several years, and even then, reproduction is slow and investment-heavy. A pair may raise just a handful of chicks over their lifetime, and not all will survive to adulthood. In such a system, population recovery from loss is a long process, often requiring protected habitats and active conservation efforts. In recent years, conservationists have begun to reframe how we understand and protect these birds. Projects focusing on community engagement, where local populations are educated and employed in monitoring, protection, and ecotourism, have proven more effective than enforcement alone. In areas where parrots once faced extinction, some populations are rebounding, their calls once again forming part of the daily rhythm of the forest. Technological tools like acoustic monitoring and drone mapping have also allowed researchers to better understand how parrots move through the landscape, which trees they use, and what threats they face over time. But even with modern tools, the essence of their lives is still best understood in place. Watching a pair of yellow-crowned Amazons shift from mutual preening to synchronized flight, their calls echoing through layers of green, one begins to glimpse the complexity of their world. They are not simply birds that mimic sound. They are social strategists, vocal experimenters, and lifelong companions. Creatures whose intelligence expresses itself not through brute problem-solving alone, but through the subtleties of interaction, adaptation, and connection. In the greater symphony of the Amazon, parrots may not have the sheer force of the harpy eagle or the volume of the screaming piha, but their genius lies in flexibility and expression. They are, in a way, the conversationalists of the forest. Not because they imitate speech, but because they understand the need to communicate clearly, persistently, and personally. They are talking tricksters, yes, but also caretakers, mourners, and thinkers. They reflect the intelligence of a forest that listens, learns, and remembers. Where the forest softens into swamp and the roots of trees vanish beneath the still waters of the Amazon's oxbow lakes, a different kind of wilderness takes hold. The air here is heavy with rot and moisture, and every movement seems delayed by the weight of heat and decay. Above the reflective surface of the water, thick mats of aquatic plants float beside stands of mangrove-like vegetation. It is a place where sound is absorbed by the sponge-like stillness of wet foliage, and where one bird moves unlike any other, awkwardly, audibly, and with an unmistakable odor trailing behind it. The hoatzin, or Pistocamus hoazin, is not a bird that blends in quietly. At first glance, it looks like a creature assembled from spare evolutionary parts. Its plumage is rust red and brown, its face bare and blue, its eyes ruby red, and its crest stands upright in disheveled disarray like the hairstyle of a prehistoric survivor. But what truly makes the hoatzin extraordinary is not its appearance, it's the way it lives, eats, moves, and even smells. Known colloquially as the stink bird, the hoatzin produces a pungent odor caused by bacterial fermentation in its gut, a digestive system more akin to that of a cow than a typical bird. This digestive system defines the hoatzin's behavior, morphology, and habitat. It feeds almost exclusively on young leaves, which are low in nutrients and difficult to digest. To break them down, the bird has evolved a large, multi-chambered crop and esophagus that serve the role of a fermentation vat. Inside, symbiotic bacteria decompose the plant material, producing gases and acids that, together with the bird's droppings, give it its signature barnyard smell. This internal chemistry not only alienates predators, most carnivores avoid the hoatzin unless desperate, but also affects the bird's own physiology. Because the crop is so enlarged, it displaces flight muscles, making the hoatzin a weak and clumsy flyer. Its takeoffs are noisy and slow, more of a scramble than a launch. It moves through the trees more often by hopping, climbing, and gliding than by powered flight. The hoatzin's home is the dense, flooded forest along riverbanks and swamps, where the air is thick and the foliage hangs low over dark, still water. In the early morning, these birds perch along branches just above the surface, resting in groups and ruffling their feathers as they begin their daily routines. Their calls are harsh and guttural, like coughing combined with rasping whistles, and their movements are slow, as though laboring under the weight of their own biology. When startled, an entire group may launch into flight with chaotic flapping and wheezing cries, crash-landing into nearby branches. It is an ungainly spectacle, more reminiscent of a failed escape than graceful retreat. But beneath this clumsiness lies a bird astonishing in its adaptations. Hoatzins nest communally, often in tangled thickets that lean over the water, where multiple pairs may build nests just meters apart. Their reproductive strategy is cooperative. Older offspring from previous broods help raise the young, defend the territory, and guard the nest. These helpers feed the chicks regurgitated plant mash, remain on alert during foraging excursions, and may even fend off predators like snakes or monkeys. This form of cooperative breeding is rare in birds, and its appearance in the hoatzin points to a level of social organization not immediately obvious in such seemingly chaotic animals. The young, however, are perhaps the most remarkable part of the species. Huatzin chicks hatch covered in down and with two fully functional claws on each wing, vestigial structures that echo the reptilian lineage of all birds. These claws are not ornamental, they serve a clear purpose. When threatened, chicks often leap from the nest into the water below, swimming with coordinated paddles of wing and foot before climbing back up into the branches using their claws. Few birds demonstrate this kind of limb coordination at such a young age. By the time they fledge, the claws disappear, but for a brief moment in their development, Huatzin chicks serve as living windows into avian evolution, revealing traits that vanished in most lineages millions of years ago. These behaviors, while bizarre, are consistent, unchanged for countless generations, and adapted perfectly to the flooded ecosystem. Yet the Huatzin remains something of a taxonomic enigma. It is the only member of its family, Opisthocomidae, and its evolutionary origins are still debated. Its anatomy doesn't fit cleanly into any known group, and its DNA has produced conflicting results in phylogenetic studies. Some researchers have placed it near cuckoos, others near turacos, and some suggest it occupies a truly isolated branch of the avian tree. In this sense, the Huatzin is more than a curiosity. It is a scientific riddle, a holdover from a time when birds were still finding their evolutionary footing. Despite its uniqueness, the Huatzin is not immediately threatened. Its habitat, though vulnerable to deforestation and hydrological disruption, is often considered less economically valuable than upland forests. As a result, the Huatzin has remained relatively undisturbed compared to flashier or more commercially desirable species. Still, large-scale development, particularly hydroelectric projects and agricultural expansion, poses an increasing risk. Alterations to water levels, river flow, and wetland vegetation could have cascading effects on Huatzin nesting success and food availability. As with many rainforest species, their fate hinges not only on protection, but on the integrity of the entire ecological system they inhabit. In moments of calm, the Huatzin's world is strangely serene. A group perched along a still backwater may sit for hours, slowly chewing leaves, blinking into the humidity, and preening their feathers with lazy satisfaction. Their plumage is not sleek but coarse, designed less for show than survival. And yet, in the early light, with mist curling off the water and dragonflies zipping through the air, there's a kind of prehistoric dignity to their presence. They look out of place because they are. The Huatzin is not a bird designed for the present. It is a messenger from the past, a living fragment of a world long gone. That such a creature still exists in the modern rainforest, amid the tangled complexity of Amazonian life, is a reminder that evolution is not always linear or tidy. Sometimes it preserves the strange. Sometimes it favors what works, no matter how awkward or improbable that may appear. In the Huatzin, evolution didn't forget. It simply chose a path that led to one of the most unusual birds on Earth, a phantom of the river that survives not in spite of its oddities, but because of them. At first light, the Amazon stirs slowly. Wisps of cloud cling to the canopy like smoke rising from the forest floor, and the sun, not yet strong enough to pierce the upper foliage, casts the jungle in soft silver-green shadows. In these early hours, long before the cicadas and frogs add their pulsing rhythms to the air, the songbirds used to begin their chorus. Their voices rose in succession. High whistles from the understory, flute-like notes from the mid-canopy, and bright staccato bursts from the crowns of trees. It was a layered composition, structured, spontaneous, and dense with information. Yet in many parts of the Amazon now, that dawn chorus has thinned to a few scattered calls, brief and isolated, the remnants of a symphony that once defined the morning. The silence is not complete, but it is profound. The missing voices belong to species whose numbers have dwindled so slowly that their absence is often noticed too late. Birds like the crimson fruit crow, the black-faced cotinga, and the music wrens, once steady contributors to the forest's soundscape, are now rare. their songs fading with each passing season. Their calls were never loud or boastful like the screaming piha or thunderous like macaw squawks. Instead, they filled the spaces in between, subtle, intricate, refined. In many cases, these species remain unseen even by those who live nearby. They are small, elusive, and often tied to specific niches in the forest. When their territory is destroyed or their nesting trees felled, they disappear not with drama, but with a whisper. Each bird's song is not just an expression of territory or courtship, it is a vital thread in a dense ecological network. Songbirds play critical roles as seed dispersers, insect regulators, and pollinators. Many of them consume a wide range of fruits and excrete seeds across great distances, aiding in the regeneration of forest gaps. Others feed on insects that prey upon tree seedlings or spread disease. Still others, particularly hummingbirds, facilitate cross-pollination across plant species. The loss of even one songbird can disrupt these tightly woven relationships, creating imbalances that ripple through the forest like unseen fractures. The causes of their decline are varied and cumulative. Habitat destruction, particularly from logging and agricultural expansion, remains the most significant. Even when deforestation is halted, fragmentation leaves patches of isolated forest surrounded by hostile environments, fields, roads, or pastures that many songbirds cannot cross. For ground dwellers or low canopy specialists, even a 100-meter gap can be a lethal barrier. Birds that once nested in the hollows of towering old-growth trees now find themselves in regrowth forests with no cavities, no food abundance, and no shelter from predators. Predation itself has changed. Edge effects, ecological shifts that occur at the boundaries of fragmented habitats, bring new threats. Generalist predators like snakes, rats, and invasive birds thrive in edge zones, preying on nests that once would have been better protected in the interior. Some birds are particularly vulnerable to brood parasitism, in which other species, such as cowbirds, lay their eggs in the songbirds' nests, leaving the hosts to raise chicks that outcompete their own. These pressures compound in subtle ways, reducing reproductive success year after year until populations dwindle to nothing. The golden-crowned manakin, once restricted to a sliver of southern Amazon forest, provides a striking example of how delicate these systems can be. This bird, known for its strange evolutionary history, an apparent hybrid species born from two parent lineages, depends on lek-based mating grounds where males perform dances and display their bright plumage to visiting females. When these sites are disturbed, the breeding system collapses. Males, unable to gather or perform, lose reproductive opportunities. Without intervention, the species would vanish in pockets before anyone realized they were in danger. Other species have already vanished entirely from large parts of their historical range. The Rio de Janeiro antwern, though not Amazonian, exemplifies the fate shared by many rainforest endemics. Habitat reduced to a few remaining hectares, nesting pairs numbered in the dozens, their song now a subject of recordings and archives rather than living memory. The Amazon, vast as it is not immune to this pattern. Its interior, once considered too remote to threaten, is increasingly reached by roads, mines, and fires that hollow out the structure of the forest from within. And yet, songbirds are often overlooked in conservation discourse. Large, charismatic species, jaguars, harpy eagles, giant river otters, draw headlines and funding. Tiny birds that weigh less than a handful of leaves and live in the shadowy thickets below the canopy rarely become symbols of international campaigns. Their loss is quieter, but no less significant. The emptying of the forest's acoustic space is a measurable, distressing trend. Bioacoustic monitoring, using networks of recording devices placed throughout the forest, has revealed a reduction in song diversity over time, even in protected areas. In places where human presence is minimal, the change in bird calls can still reflect climate stress, shifting migration patterns, and diminishing insect populations, all of which affect songbird survival. Not all stories end in silence. In certain regions, reforestation projects and community-led habitat corridors have helped to reintroduce songbirds to fragmented habitats. In Peru and Colombia, some native species have rebounded after just a decade of forest recovery. In Ecuador, citizen science programs have involved locals in tracking the return of rarities like the orange-throated tanager. These efforts combine ecological knowledge with education, reminding communities that songbirds are more than background noise. They are indicators of a forest's integrity. Still, much remains to be done. Preserving songbirds requires more than isolated reserves. It requires connectivity, landscape-scale planning that allows populations to move, mix, and adapt. It requires preserving not just the trees, but the vertical complexity of the forest, where different species inhabit specific layers, from the undergrowth to the highest emergent crowns. And it requires a cultural shift to recognize that the small, the quiet, and the unseen deserve protection as much as the spectacular. In the end, the songs of these birds are not ornaments. They are signals of presence, of health, of memory. When they vanish, something larger is lost. The forest becomes less than itself. The intricate web of interaction frays, and those who walk beneath the trees notice, even if they cannot always name what has gone missing. For now, in certain corners of the Amazon, the songs still persist. A fluting note from the canopy, a tremolo in the brush, a whisper of wings at dawn. These remnants hold meaning, not only for what they are, but for what they represent. The resilience of a system still capable of holding its breath and singing.